What if money didn't exist, and the only currency that mattered was your time? Imagine waking up every single day knowing that when your clock hits 0, you die. No warnings, no mercy, just gone. In this world, every cup of coffee, every bus ride, even a loaf of bread costs minutes or years off your life. But here's the real question. If you were born with only hours to live, how far would you go to survive? And what would you risk to change the system? If stories like this pull you in, hit that like button. Subscribe to the channel and stay with me till the very end, because this journey only gets more intense from here. This is a world where money has no value. Time is everything. If you want to buy anything, you must pay with minutes or years from your own life. Only then can you afford it. But to live comfortably here, you need time, lots of it. The moment a person turns 25, aging stops completely. Instead, a glowing 1-year countdown appears on their arm. When that countdown reaches 0, that's it. Your life ends instantly. The rich have so much time stored that they could live for 1,000 years if they wanted. They've built a separate, peaceful world for themselves, a place where survival isn't a daily struggle. Meanwhile, in the ghettos, the poor work non-stop just to earn enough hours to make it to tomorrow. If they don't, they die. In one of these poor neighborhoods lives a young man named Will. On his clock, only 23 hours remain. He lives with his mother. Since aging stops at 25, even though she is 50 years old, she looks just as young as he does. Today is her 50th birthday. To celebrate, Will worked overtime the previous night and bought a bottle of champagne. When his mother sees it, her face lights up with joy. Smiling warmly, she tells him she wants to see her grandchildren someday. "Why don't you start dating someone?" she asks playfully. Will shrugs and replies, "Who has time for that?" Then she reminds him that the electricity bill and a bank loan must be paid by tomorrow, or they'll face penalties. She explains she's heading out to handle everything and will return by tomorrow night after clearing the debts. She reveals she has only 3 days left on her clock. Almost all of it will go toward paying the bills. That's why she asks Will to meet her at the bus stop tomorrow evening, before her time runs out, so she can borrow some from him if needed. Will promises he'll be there. Before leaving, she gently takes his hand and transfers 30 minutes to him so he can buy himself a decent breakfast. Then, they both head off to work. On the way, a little girl approaches Will. She hands him a small capsule and shyly asks for a bit of his time. Smiling kindly, Will transfers 5 minutes of his life into the capsule and gives it back to her. She runs off happily. In this world, people can store time in capsules, saving and transferring it whenever needed. Will arrives at the factory. Before starting his shift, he goes to grab coffee, but he's shocked. Prices have doubled. Coffee that used to cost 2 minutes now costs 4. Here, prices can rise any time without warning. It frustrates him deeply, but he has no choice. He pays 4 minutes of his life and gets to work. That night, after a long day, Will goes to a bar with his best friend, a heavy drinker who's almost always intoxicated. His friend gestures toward a man buying drinks for everyone. "He's loaded with time," he whispers. Will looks over. The man is surrounded by women, laughing freely. When Will checks his clock, he freezes. The man has 116 years. That means he's from Greenwich, the wealthy zone. In the ghettos, people are lucky to have 2 days. Will approaches him and warns him, "You shouldn't be here. This place is dangerous. People will kill you for your time. You need to leave." But the man ignores him and keeps drinking. Suddenly, a gangster named Fortis enters with his crew. Everyone scatters. Fortis is notorious. He steals time by force. Will's friend tries to pull him away, but Will refuses and hides to watch. Fortis challenges the wealthy man to a time fight, an arm wrestling match where the loser's time drains into the winner's body. The one whose arm drops loses life instantly. The rich man says he's had too much to drink and needs a few minutes to prepare. Fortis grants him a short delay, but sends one of his men to watch him. In the bathroom, the wealthy man vomits violently, clearly intoxicated. In this condition, he would definitely lose. That's when Will steps in. He knocks out Fortis's guard and helps the man escape, taking him somewhere safe. The man introduces himself as Henry. He asks Will's age. 28. Henry replies, I'm 105, and I'm tired of living. He explains he's experienced everything life has to offer. He doesn't want to live anymore. Will is stunned. Henry reveals the truth. Time zones exist to control the population. Prices and taxes in the ghettos are deliberately raised so the poor keep dying. Their stolen time feeds the wealthy in Greenwich. The entire system is designed to keep the poor desperate and working. They don't want you to have more time, Henry says. If you did, you'd stop working for them. He refuses to live off years taken from desperate people. Then Henry asks, if you had as much time as I do, what would you do? Will smiles faintly. At that moment, he only has 18 hours left. I'd stop staring at my clock every second, he says. I'd buy my mom a house in Greenwich. We'd live peacefully. Will suggests they stay hidden until morning. They fall asleep. When Will wakes up, Henry is gone. He checks his clock and nearly collapses. 116 years have been added. On the window, Henry has written, "Don't waste my time." Will rushes outside and sees Henry sitting on a bridge. He runs toward him, but it's too late. Henry's countdown hits 0. He falls into the water below. Will is devastated. Now carrying 116 years, he knows he'll be blamed. He visits his friend and gives him 10 years as a gift. His friend is overwhelmed with gratitude. Will decides to leave the ghetto and buy a new life for his mother in Greenwich. He waits at the bus stop with flowers. Meanwhile, his mother boards a bus after paying all debts. But ticket prices have doubled from 1 hour to 2. She only has 90 minutes left. She begs the driver to let her pay the rest at the next stop. He refuses. She asks passengers for help. No one responds. The bus leaves. She runs. Will waits anxiously. When she doesn't arrive, he panics and runs searching for her. She bangs on doors, begging for time. No one helps. Finally, they see each other in the distance. They both run. Her clock shows 10 seconds. Just as she reaches him, her time hits 0. She collapses in his arms. Will screams in agony. The next day, timekeepers, police-like officers, investigate Henry's death. Officer Raymond checks CCTV footage and spots Will near the bridge. Suspicion grows. Meanwhile, Will blames the rich for his mother's death. He heads to Greenwich. It costs him 1 year just to enter. Inside, he's stunned. Even bodyguards carry over 100 years. The rich live like death doesn't exist. At a luxury hotel, a beautiful woman notices him. Her name is Sylvia. Raymond identifies Will through records and heads to Greenwich. At a casino, Will plays poker against Philip, the richest man in the city and owner of a time bank. Sylvia is Philip's daughter. Will risks all his years and wins 1,100 years through sharp strategy. Impressed, Sylvia invites him to a party. The next evening, Will arrives in a new car. They dance. Sylvia begins falling for him. Suddenly, Raymond arrests Will for Henry's murder, leaving him only 2 hours. Will insists Henry chose to die. Raymond doesn't believe him. Will escapes, disarms the guards, and takes Sylvia hostage to flee back to the ghetto. During the chase, Fortis ambushes them with spikes on the road. Their car crashes off a bridge. Fortis steals Sylvia's 10 years. They wake with barely any time left. Will shares his remaining minutes equally. They seek help from Will's friend, but discover he drank away the 10 years and died. Desperate, Will sells Sylvia's diamond earrings for 2 days of time. Will calls Philip, demanding 10,000 years be distributed to the poor in exchange for Sylvia. Philip refuses. Sylvia realizes her father values time more than her life. Now that Sylvia has fully turned against her father, there's no going back for her. Will tells her she still has a chance to walk away from all this. She could return to Greenwich. She could live comfortably again. She doesn't have to ruin her life over this fight. But Sylvia looks around the ghetto, really looks this time. For the first time in her life, she sees how people live here. She sees the fear in their eyes. She sees mothers checking their clocks every few minutes. She sees workers collapsing from exhaustion just to earn a few more hours. And she realizes something. Back in Greenwich, her life was like a bird trapped in a golden cage. Her father, Philip, controlled everything. Who she met, where she went, how she lived. There were rules, expectations, and invisible chains everywhere. But here she feels something she has never felt before. Freedom. Here, she gets to choose. And now she understands that the system is wrong, so she makes her decision. She's staying with Will. From that moment on, the two of them begin working together. They start robbing the rich. But this isn't random chaos. This is strategy. Sylvia knows every corner of Greenwich City, the banks, the private vaults, the time capsule storage units. She grew up around it. She knows how her father operates, so they come up with a plan. They will rob time banks in Greenwich, steal the time capsules, and distribute them among the poor. And the first target? Philip's own banks. Because all that time Philip collected, every single year, came from the deaths of poor people. One night, they break into one of Philip's secured facilities. They move carefully, silently. They reach the vault. Inside are capsules, glowing with stored years. Will opens the safe. They begin stuffing the time capsules into a large bag. Thousands of years, tens of thousands. Then they escape. The next day, in the ghetto, something unbelievable happens. People begin receiving time. Capsules are handed out. Mothers who had only hours left suddenly have months. Workers who were about to die suddenly have years. For the first time, panic turns into hope. But this massive theft doesn't go unnoticed. The government is furious. The elite are shaken. A bounty is placed on Will and Sylvia's heads. 10 years of time for anyone who captures them. When gangster Fortis hears about the bounty, he becomes obsessed. 10 years is a fortune in the ghetto. He starts hunting them like animals. But Will and Sylvia stay smart. They change locations constantly. Every day a new hideout. They don't stay anywhere long enough to be tracked. At one point, they hide inside a hotel. They have plenty of time for now, so they rent the entire place under false credentials. Fortis eventually tracks them to that hotel. He grabs random people outside and demands information. But the people in the ghetto haven't forgotten what Will and Sylvia did for them. They're ready to die before betraying them. However, under extreme pressure and fear, one man finally breaks. He tells Fortis the exact hotel where Will and Sylvia are hiding. Fortis and his gang storm the building. They catch them. This time, escape seems impossible. Fortis sits Will down at a table. He smiles coldly. He challenges Will to a time fight. Will understands immediately. If he refuses, Fortis' men will kill him. So he agrees. They lock wrists. The deadly arm wrestling match begins. Fortis is experienced. He slams Will's hand downward almost instantly. Will's time starts draining rapidly into Fortis' clock. The numbers on Will's arm begin falling fast. Seconds disappear. Minutes vanish. But something is strange. Will isn't fighting back. He looks almost calm, like he's letting himself lose. Fortis smirks, confident. Will's clock drops lower and lower. And then, in one explosive movement, Will surges with strength and slams Fortis' hand down. Fortis' eyes widen in shock. He tries with everything he has to push back, but Will doesn't budge. Now Fortis' time is draining. Fast. His men stare at his clock in horror. Their boss is seconds away from death. In that split second of distraction, Will pulls a hidden gun from inside his shoe. And without hesitation, he shoots Fortis' men. Because if he doesn't, they'll shoot him. Fortis' clock hits 0. He collapses, dead. Will and Sylvia run. But soon they realize something devastating. The rich have responded. They've increased inflation dramatically. All the time Will and Sylvia distributed, it's nearly worthless now. Prices have skyrocketed again. Will feels defeated. He tells Sylvia it's over. Even if they give out 1,000 years to people, the elite will just raise prices again. The system will always adjust. The rich will always protect themselves. Sylvia looks at him and says, there has to be another way. Will thinks carefully. Then he says something bold. We don't need thousands of years. We need millions. If they steal millions of years and flood the ghetto with time, inflation won't be able to crush it fast enough. It's risky. It's nearly impossible. But Sylvia already has a plan. The next morning, Philip arrives at his office with heavy security. Suddenly, Sylvia walks in. She says she wants to surrender. Guards immediately aim their weapons at her. Philip looks confused, cautious, and then, from behind a guard's uniform, Will steps forward. He had disguised himself. He presses a gun against Philip's head, forces him to open the private vault. Inside is something massive, a time capsule containing 1 million years. 1 million years, accumulated from the deaths of the poor. Will and Sylvia grab it. They escape before security can respond. Now Raymond hears about this theft. He's furious. He immediately goes after them. He checks his clock. Less than 1 hour remains. He calls headquarters and demands his salary be sent in capsule form. Timekeepers only receive 1 day of time as daily pay. They send the capsule. But before Raymond transfers it into his body, he spots Will's car. Without thinking, he chases them. Capsule still in his hand, unused. Because he knows, if 1 million years reach the ghetto, the entire system collapses. The poor will no longer need to work factories just to survive. The foundation of elite control will crumble. Raymond chases them with everything he has, but Will and Sylvia manage to reach the ghetto first. They hand the million-year capsule to a little girl, trusting her to distribute it quickly. They know Raymond will come directly for them, so they leave that area and run toward an isolated zone. Meanwhile, across the ghetto, time is being distributed. Millions of years, people are becoming effectively immortal. Factories are shutting down. Workers are walking away. Dreams are being reborn. But Will and Sylvia, they barely have any time left. And at that exact moment, Raymond catches them. He aims his gun at Will. He says, "If you value your life, return the stolen time." Will calmly raises his arm. He shows Raymond his clock. Only minutes remain. Then Will reminds him, "When you were bleeding out, I gave you time. You owe me." Raymond suddenly remembers. In his obsession to catch them, he completely ignored his own clock. He looks down. 5 seconds left. Raymond collapses, dead. Will and Sylvia survived him, but they're not safe yet. They each have only about a minute remaining. They're in the middle of nowhere. No one around to help. They hug each other quietly, accepting the possibility of death. Then Will spots something. Raymond's car. He runs toward it. Inside, Raymond's unused salary capsule. Will quickly transfers the time into his arm. Life surges back into his clock. He turns and runs toward Sylvia. She's running toward him too. Seconds left. It mirrors the moment when he lost his mother. But this time, he reaches her. She collapses into his arms, but he catches her in time, transfers time to her. She survives. Because of Will and Sylvia, the entire Dayton ghetto becomes immortal. People no longer need to work just to survive another hour. They begin walking toward Greenwich, not as workers, not as victims, but as equals. And the system built by the rich begins to fall apart.